3, 4, 4, too much, 5, orange, how much, 5, 4, 3, coming down, going down, hang on, 1. Rain clap. And when there is so much of rain, what you can expect? There will be a lot of mosquitoes. So second is mosquito clap. What clap? Very interesting clap. Okay. So who is this mosquito? You must imagine a mosquito is coming. Who is coming? But who is coming as mosquito? आपकी favorite heroine कौन है? बताइए बताइए. बहुत सारी है. एक बताइए, एक का नाम लीजिए जो आपके बहुत नजदीक है, बहुत पास है. दिल के एक तो होगी. This is what? एक तो होगी. कौन है? दीपिका, प्रियंका, Hema. What Hema? Oh my God! Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay. So his favorite is Hema. You must imagine Hema is coming as a mosquito. Female sexy mosquito. She's coming and going. She's going to suck your blood. Okay. Are you clear? So who is coming? Has it? Just for fun. Okay. Don't take it very seriously. Don't take it very seriously. She's coming. And how she comes? That background music is very important. Background music is very important. Who is coming? Are you ready? This is too much actually. It doesn't matter. Try. At least try for fun. Try. With music. Ready? Okay. Next, who is coming? My favorite. Whose favorite? My favorite. And who is my favorite? Who is my favorite heroine? Any guess? Huh? Madhuba. Wow. I'm not that old man. Wow. Who is my favorite? Any guess?
Your wife.
No way. Who is my favorite? Very simple. Sunny Leon. So she's coming. Sunny Leon is coming as a. She can't even fly. Too much of weight, but still. Still trying to fly. Okay, she's coming. नीचे से पता नहीं यार नीचे से या ऊपर से आ रही है. Already start. Who says we have grown up? Oh my God. Thank you so much. We'll start the afternoon with a very important session, very critical session. Communication. Lecture is a remarkable way to communicate in a large class. Small group teaching is a remarkable way to communicate in a small group. Description is the ability to communicate a fact, a truth. So everything is communication. Communication, dialogue is communication, advocacy is communication, inquiry is communication, trust is communication, keeping promises. So this afternoon, the first session is a very essential session. As teachers, this is most essential that you must have the skills of speaking, communicating from a public platform. Invariably, you will be asked to give a welcome address, a vote of thanks, introduction of the chief guest, or you yourself will be a chief guest where you have to speak. Very difficult task. Most of us have an inner fear. We can't speak. You become speechless when you go there. So this is a very important practical session which will help you to understand how do you communicate effectively from a public platform. And I request Professor Ramnarayan to do the session. Thank you so much. Please sit back, please rest, please relax.
Very good afternoon. Very good afternoon. Very good afternoon. This afternoon we are going to look at another skill of communication. We call those three circles: curriculum, learning methods, assessment, and safe learning environment. Many of the sessions that Sudhakar does relate to that square, safe learning environment. Of course, we have a lot of overlap. We can't put partitions between these. When you communicate, we communicate from different locations. It might be in a large class, might be small class, might be one-to-one. But very often as academics, we are required to perform in a public function. And a public function has got several components. And we often don't have the awareness about doing things in a public function. We have been given the responsibility, but we sometimes are at a loss what to do. So this session is to focus on the skills of public speaking. Let us start off with the differences between a public speech and a lecture. The first difference you would have already observed, that is the place constraint. Almost always a public speech is given from behind a lectern. Lectern is this, where I am standing behind. People may call this as podium, platform, but the actual word is a lectern. So place constraint, the first difference is there is a place constraint, meaning you do not have the mobility which you have in all our other sessions. We were moving around, we were walking around. When you give a public speech, that mobility is not there. You are restricted behind the lectern. So place constraint. Lecterns, unfortunately, today are designed in such a way that it hides most of the person. As if the person standing behind is at the risk of assassination. This amount of coverage is not required. Ideal lecterns should not be like this, because these lecterns are designed to accommodate so many other things. They want to store so many other things. So it also becomes a storehouse. The ideal lectern is what you would see in a church, or you might see, if you look at the US president speaking, it is just a single wooden support and you have a low platform to keep the paper. So ideally, a lectern should allow what you have worn to be seen. You are wearing a nice dress, you are wearing a sari, you are wearing a nice suit. If you wish to speak in public, it's nice if you are visible. You can't hide behind the lectern. Particularly if you happen to be very short and the lectern is very big, then your head may just about be seen. Sometimes your head also will not be seen. You may have to be propped up. So ideal lecterns should not be like this. It should be a simple design which will enable most of you to be seen. As it is, you have some disadvantages because of the place constraint. So it's better that you are visible as much as possible. So the first is the place constraint. The second difference between a lecture and a public speech is time constraint. Public speeches are generally 3 to 4 minutes, most of them. If you are the chief guest, you might speak for 20 minutes. That's about it. It's a different matter that people speak an hour and beyond an hour. That's not going to be effective. You can speak, but who's going to listen? Ideally, if you are a chief guest, you should speak no more than 20 minutes. But most other speeches, welcome speech, vote of thanks, introducing a chief guest, all this can be done very well within 3 minutes if you know what to do. So the second is time constraint. The second difference. Whereas a lecture has got 60 minutes, so you have a lot of time. Whereas here you have about 3 to 4 minutes, and that's when you have to make the impact. The third difference between a lecture and a public speech is salutation. salutation or addressing the people on the dais. You have invited important people to participate in the function, and they have come, and you have placed them on the dais. You have to address them by name. Recognizing their presence, addressing them by name. That means you have to name them, acknowledging their presence, recognizing that they are there. So that is the least we should do for those people who have taken time off to be with us. So salutation is addressing the people on the dais. Sometimes we make a mistake of saying dignitaries on the dais and dignitaries of the dais. That's a very casual way of saying things, because it gives a feeling there are dignitaries under the dais, below the dais, behind the dais, before the. So don't say that on the dais and off the dais. It's a very casual way of addressing them. It is important that they have to be recognized. The dignitaries must be recognized. So please address them by preceding their name with their designation. Meaning, you can say President so and so, Vice President so and so, Registrar so and so, Treasurer so and so. Why I am saying preceded by their designation? Sometimes we say, for one person we say beloved so and so. For the next person you say respected so and so. For the third person you say honorable so and so. For the fourth person you don't say anything. The fourth person will feel offended, he or she may not say. But if you are going to say beloved to everybody, then also it looks a little suspicious. Everybody is beloved for you. So you have to be careful. It's better not to use these words beloved unless it is the governor or the president, when you say His Excellency or Her Excellency. That's different. But otherwise it is the simplest way to handle it is name preceded by the designation. That is designation and the name you give, so that you are treating everybody equally. There is no need. You don't have to go into a detailed description of their designation. So these are three things I want you to remember: the time, the place constraint, the time constraint, and salutation. Now, if you find that when you go to speak, several times they have been addressed, all the 9 or 10 people on the dais have been addressed, you can simply start off saying ladies and gentlemen and start off. There's no problem. People understand. Because it may take a full minute if you have several people and you go on repeating, and as it is you have only 3 minutes. So if you feel that enough times they have been addressed, you can simply say ladies and gentlemen and go ahead. People understand. But don't say dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. That's preferably avoid. It is important that when you give a public speech, you be aware of what goes into any public speech. Whatever be the public speech, there are some ingredients. There are, just as we saw the ingredients of a lecture, there are some ingredients for any public speech. So first I will share with you the ingredients that make up a public speech. You will now receive a handout that will have all these ingredients in a tabular format. I'll take you through each one of these components. There is a framework that is given, and if you look at the framework that you have in your hand, you will note that a public speech comes in 3 stages. The first stage is the stage of preparation. In that there are many steps. Second stage is the stage of platform performance. In that there are some steps. In the third stage of excellence, there are some steps. So I will take you through all the stages and every step in each stage, just to explain to you why each of these steps are important. Once we have that, then we'll go into the specific types of public speeches. So let us look at any public speech in general. When you look at any public speech, the first stage is the stage of preparation, also known as pre-speech planning. What you do before the speech, pre-speech planning. That is the stage of preparation, the first stage. And in the first stage, the first step is information or data collection. You know you have to give a public speech 1 week from now, and you have to speak on public speaking. You start gathering information, you start collecting data, you start building a bank. That is the first step in the first stage, building a bank, gathering data. Out of respect to the people who are coming to listen to you, you have to do your homework. That means collecting data, gathering information, but while doing so, remember, no limit to the information you collect. You can collect as much information as you can, depending on the time available. No limit and no order. There is no order. You can collect it in any order. You may speak to somebody who is a public speaker. You may read a newspaper article on public speaking. You may read a book on public speaking. You may view a video on public speaking. You will collect it in different ways. So basically, what you are attempting to do is to build a bank. And that is the first step, very important. The more time you have, the more information you will be able to collect. If you have done the first step, you are now ready for the second step, editing. Editing of a public speech means two things: selection and sequence. Selection means what? Select from the bank, from the data that you have collected, those 7 ideas or 6 ideas. That's all you can do. In 3 minutes, you can at the most give 4 or 5 or 6 ideas. You take the best 6 ideas or 5 ideas. You decide, okay, now I have 3 minutes, and for me to have the maximum impact, I will choose only these 6 ideas or 5 ideas. So selection means selecting from the bank those 6. Bank will have a lot of information. I don't want everything now. I'll take those 6 ideas. That is selection. Sequencing. That's the second part. Second aspect of editing. You decide how you will sequence your presentation. Will I start with a quotation? Will I start with a story? When will the message come? When will the poem come? What comes where? The sequence is decided during your pre-speech planning. Depending on the audience, if it is school children, you may have to put it in a very simple, straightforward way. If you have a mature audience, you can afford to take some risks. So it is something that you will decide depending on the audience you're going to face, the target audience. So that is sequencing. So if you have done your selection and sequencing, you are now ready for the third step, the writing of a public speech. You may ask, should you write every public speech? Important public speeches are best written, not necessarily read. If you're reading it, it's okay, but it's always better to write important speeches for 2 reasons. One is, if you write a speech, you get a sense of timing. You know, once you have written a speech and read the speech, you know how much time it takes. Because organizers have told you, you have only 3 minutes, you have only 4 minutes, so don't exceed the time. So, for you to get a sense of timing, you must write your speech, so that you have an idea how, otherwise you will not be able to sort of predict how much time it will take. The second reason why you should write a speech is you will get familiar with unfamiliar words and terms, particularly names, designations, society memberships, things about the chief guest or anybody if you are going to read. Those names may be unfamiliar to you. So you get familiar with the language, you get familiar with the names and designations or unfamiliar terms that you at least you practice. So that way writing of a speech helps. Don't memorize your speeches. Language must be your personal function. Whatever be the language you speak, be it Hindi, English, whatever be the language you speak, language must be your personal function. Don't memorize it. If you memorize it, you will get stuck, and then you won't be able to proceed. It happened to me some years ago when I was giving a speech. I had memorized my speech, and halfway through the speech, I forgot one sentence. I was not getting the connect. I was not able to proceed further. For some reason, I was not getting that particular sentence. and I was not able to proceed. So I stopped, I waited, I paused, and there was a long silence. People thought my speech is over, they all clapped. I went and sat down. My speech was only 50% over. But this happened because I memorized the speech. I got stuck with the language. Language must be a personal function. You must have your ideas. Don't memorize your speech, because if you memorize the speech, invariably you will get stuck with the language. So don't do that. As much as possible, your ideas must flow and your language must be a personal function of yours. So don't memorize the speech. Writing a speech primarily helps you with the timing and the familiarity with the unfamiliar terms. If you have done that, you are now ready for the fourth step, and that is speech plan cards. It's very cumbersome if you bring a paper for a speech, especially when you don't have a lectern. You sometimes go to a function, realize that there is no lectern. You only find the mic. Then it's very cumbersome for you to hold a paper. And this paper, you know from where you have taken it. You have taken it from your daughter's first standard notebook. Now she is in 10th standard. And this paper is already very brittle, very old. You have folded it, kept it in your pocket, and you are already shivering and sweating, and your time has come to give a speech. They call your name, you come. By the time you come, the fan is in full blast. You unfold the paper, paper is in pieces, speech is in pieces, everybody is running after your speech. There is a risk involved with paper, because it can fly. It is always better that you write your ideas on a card, a simple card. Once your speech is ready, convert your ideas into a card. This card is easy to carry. You can put it in your pocket, you may put it in your purse, and it's also very elegant. Even if you don't have a lectern, you can hold this and it will be possible for you to speak. So it's safer always to carry your ideas in a card. And that card is easy to carry rather than a paper. Particularly now, after New Year, you will have several cards lying around in your home. So you may be tempted to carry a very colorful card like this. You will say, oh, this card is lying around. You will take the card, write your ideas, and then you come and stand there. Suddenly people get interested what is behind the card. They are not interested in your speech. They will look at the behind of your card, and they are totally distracted because they will start arguing who is behind the card. So it is better you don't carry any card that will distract people. Very colorful cards can be tempting because it's lying all over your home. So don't write your ideas on that, come here, and then people get suddenly interested in what is behind the card. I want them to be interested in the speech that you are doing. So don't use cards which are going to cause distraction. If you have done that, you are now ready for the first, that is the first stage is over. Why did I spend this much time explaining to you the importance of the first stage? Because if you have done your first stage well, it gives you confidence for the second stage. Today, people are not going to be fooled by all the force and all the energy of your speech. They want to listen to content. They want to have a take-home message. There was an army major who was asked to give a speech. It was Army Day. He said, today is Army Day. Today is not Navy Day. Today is not Air Force Day. Army Day is celebrated on the ground. Army Day is not celebrated in the air. Army Day is not celebrated on the sea. Army Day is celebrated by the Army. Army Day is not celebrated by the Navy. Army Day is not celebrated by the Air Force. Today is Army Day. Today is not Navy Day. Today is not Air Force Day. Therefore, we celebrate Army Day today. We are not celebrating Navy Day today. We are not celebrating Air Force Day. There is nothing there in that speech. Nothing. You may give a speech very powerfully and you may convey with so much of there is nothing in that speech. So be aware, today people cannot be fooled. People want to listen to content. Out of respect for the people, please, who are coming to listen to you, please prepare your speech. That is the least we should do for the people who come to listen to you. And that's why first stage is important. If you have done that, you are now ready for the second stage. And that is platform performance. If you have done your first stage well, you are now ready for the second stage. And the first step in the second stage is posture. Posture is the stand that you take behind the lectern. That will show respect to the people who are listening to you. If I come before you and lean on the lectern and start speaking, this is a very disrespectful way of speaking, because why do I have to lean on the lectern as if the lectern is supposed to hold my weight? This is not a way to show respect to the people who are listening to you. You do not lean on the lectern. I was once witness to a conference, an international conference in Hyderabad, where we had an international speaker. He did not realize that this lectern was supported by a single screw. He came and said, "Ladies and gentlemen," and that whole thing just collapsed to the thud. And for almost 30 seconds, he was so stunned by what happened, he could have hurt himself. That whole thing collapsed. This is the risk involved. This lectern is not meant to hold your weight. It is meant to hold the paper or the card or whatever you are carrying. But don't put your weight on it. Some people in their nervousness hug the lectern. Why do you want to hug the lectern? They hug the lectern. This nervousness is seen. You hug the lectern and then you keep speaking. Actually, this hugging is an indication of your nervousness, because you are little uncomfortable, so you need something to support, you hug it. And then I saw one college principal who slowly disrobed the lectern. He didn't realize he was doing this, and he didn't realize that all the decoration, all the flowers, all the things the organizers had done, he simply disrobed everything, and the cloth came in his hand, he folded it and kept it there, and the organizers were in panic. They were wondering what was not supposed to be seen suddenly appeared, and he dismantled everything. This is something. Don't do anything adventurous with the lectern. Don't hug the lectern, don't disrobe the lectern. You can do that to somebody else, but not to the lectern. Please leave that. So, leave the lectern alone. It is important that you take a stand that will enable you to stand away from the lectern, keep your card or keep your paper. It's also important because of our association with television, we tend to hold the mic. And then you don't realize that your nervousness is being conveyed to the whole world, because you are nervous, your hand is shaking, and this nervousness, when you hold the mic, your mic also starts shaking and the whole world hears your reverberation. Leave the mic alone, everything will be handled. They will come and adjust the mic. Don't hold, because we are always used to seeing people holding the mic, and you think you should hold the mic. You know the problems when you hold the mic. There will be all sorts of noises. As it is, the mic can give you all sorts of noises. We have seen that. But please remember, if you hold it, it can be even more accentuated. So be aware of it. Leave everything alone. They will come and adjust it. Leave it alone. If you have done that, you are now ready for gesture. Second step. So first step, take a stand that will enable you to stand straight. Look at everybody in the audience. Second is gesture is what you do with your hands.
Sir, one question. Sir, but actually nervousness does exist.
Nervousness is there. Everybody, you think I am not nervous? Everybody has nervousness. Given hundreds of speeches, but every time you have to give a speech, you are nervous. And that is actually some sort of a way you respond. It is, again, you want to do well. It is that nervousness you cannot avoid. If you are too casual, you will not do well. That is true with an exam also. When you are going for an exam, you have to have a little bit of what they call as eustress. That is the good stress, not stress that will make it distress. And this eustress is necessary. That will make you perform well as well. So please be aware, most of them appear to be comfortable, but in reality there is an element of stress. So, but if you know what to do in a public speech, that stress level will come down. That's all we can do. The stress level will come down. Many times the stress comes because we don't know what to do. We are confused. And that uncertainty makes us more stressed. So we minimize that component if you know the rudiments of public speaking. Gesture is what you do with your hands. It's very difficult for you to stand before an audience. And if you keep your hands like this, and I speak like this is not appropriate. If I put my hands in front, that is terrible. I can't hold my hands like this. If I put my hands very stiff on either side and then speak to you, this is also not appropriate. Then I put my hands to my pocket, some coins will fall, some change will fall, keychain will fall. Everybody is interested what is coming out of his pocket. You are not interested in the speech, you are interested in what is the content of my pocket. Now, this is the risk involved. You don't know what to do with your hands. And sometimes hands go on inappropriate gestures. So it's always better when you give a public speech, if you can use the hands to go along with your speaking. Whatever you are speaking, if it comes naturally, let it be so. Otherwise, allow it to rest gently on the lectern. You may adjust the paper or the card. But otherwise, don't worry too much about the hands. It will come naturally. Don't plan anything that will not go hand in hand with what you are speaking. That's the only thing. Let it come naturally. Leave it and don't worry too much about it. I had a former principal of a college who used to say, when I give a public speech, please remove my hands. In the sense, what he was trying to say is, I'm so conscious of my hands. I'll be happy if I don't have hands during my public speech, so that I don't have to keep fiddling, fidgeting, or that's the feeling that most people have, because you become very conscious of your hands. So leave the hand. If you can, forget about your hands. That would be ideal, but it's easily said. Sometimes you are very conscious of the hands. Third comes eye contact. Third step in a public speech, in the second stage, eye contact. Eye contact is that communication you establish with the members of the audience in a public speech. In India, it is customary, all the women will be seated on one side, all the men will be on one side. Now, if I come and only look at the women and give a speech, the men are going to be jealous. Look at this fellow, he's looking only at the women. Or, if I feel shy, I can't look this side, I look at the men. The women are going to be offended. Are we not beautiful enough to be looked at? This is the challenge. So you have to make sure you look at everybody. We have seen public speakers who only look at one segment of the audience and continue to speak only to that segment. They ignore. It's very important when you give a public speech. At some point of time, you must be able to look at everybody. Otherwise, it will look as if some people are totally ignored. It is also important when you give a public speech, if you do recognize somebody in the audience, please don't acknowledge that. You know why? If you look at that person and you recognize that person, you give a smile. Then that person also gives a smile. Then the smile is only between you. What has happened to all of you? No smile. Or if you keep looking at that person, they feel a little embarrassed where to look. They will look at your shoe. Then you think something wrong with the shoe, you also look at the shoe. Everybody is looking at your shoe. What has happened to your speech? This is the risk involved. If you look at somebody persistently and continuously, they will look somewhere. And then you will have a little bit of a problem. Especially if you look at a lady persistently and then she starts adjusting her sari, then you know you are not been looking at her properly. Now this is the risk involved. You have to be aware, when you give a public speech, you look in such a way that you take everybody in the eye span, but not long enough to cause embarrassment. It requires a little practice. It's not like in a lecture where you can ask a question and keep looking at the person waiting for the response. Here, you just have to take everybody in the eye span. Everything is an image. Don't try to recognize anybody. Then comes pause. Pause is that silence that you give when something very important has been said. It is not possible in a public speech to repeat and reinforce. In a lecture it is possible, repetition, reinforcement, all that is possible. In a public speech, as it is, you have only 3 minutes. When you say something very important, you can't go on repeating it. When the Prime Minister spoke to the nation, when the 1000 rupee notes and 500 rupee notes were demonetized, he said, from midnight to night, of course he was speaking in Hindi, 1000 rupee notes and 500 rupee notes will no longer be legal tender. He made that announcement and followed it up with a pause. Idea has to sink in. He has made a very important announcement. And when he makes such an announcement, that idea or whatever he has announced is said slowly, deliberately, and allows that idea to sink in. That is the power of the pause. Pause coming after an important announcement has a tremendous impact. It is as good as reinforcement. So pause has to be planned. You know what you're going to speak, something very important is being said, follow it up with a pause. If you have done that, you will plan your pauses in the pre-speech planning stage. When will I give the pause? When something very important has been said, you follow it up with a pause. Then comes stress. Stress is the emphasis that you give to a word that will give the correct meaning to what you want to convey. John walked down Main Street today. 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 If his walking down today is important, I will say John walked down Main Street today. That emphasis is again decided when you prepare your speech. If you are not going to give emphasis, every word will sound the same, meaning will also be lost. Depending on what you want to convey, you will give the stress. Stress is planned during the pre-speech planning. Pause is planned during the when you write your speech, you will know when you will give the pause. It is done beforehand. It might appear to be spontaneous, but in reality, these things are actually planned. If you really are serious about conveying what you want to, you will take care of this. Then comes voice pitch modulation. Voice pitch modulation is your ability to raise your voice. Raising your voice is not shouting. It is giving strength to your voice. When you want to convey something very powerful, you will raise your voice. But when you are conveying something very delicate, very tender, when you are almost whispering to someone, there will be times when you will drop your voice. Again, when the Prime Minister, after that Nirbhaya incident, when he spoke during the Independence Day, he told the nation, and he was speaking to the citizens of the country, he said, even a rapist is the son of a father and a mother. When he said that, he could not have done this in a high pitch. He did it very gently, very sensitively, very slowly. And that too, he was speaking from the ramparts of the Red Fort. That time he lowered his voice. There were occasions after that when he raised his voice. What I am trying to say is, it is possible for you, when you plan your speech, depending on the context in which a person is speaking, he will raise his voice or lower the voice depending on the need. But you can't continuously whisper, because people will fall asleep. You will have to raise your voice. So the real powerful public speakers are those who will be able to take the speech along with the voice pitch modulation, meaning they will raise the voice when the need arises and they will lower the voice when they must tell something very sensitive and delicate. And that is voice pitch modulation. So this also has to be planned it will naturally come, because when you are conveying something very, very powerful, you may have to raise your voice. We are now coming to the third. If you have done this, you will be able to give effective speeches. I want you to be able to give not just effective speeches, I want you to give excellent speeches. How do you convert an effective speech into an excellent speech? You should take care of the next stage. First is a rhetorical question. The first step in the third stage is what I call rhetorical question. The rhetorical question is a question that you will ask and you yourself will answer quickly the way you want it. Ladies and gentlemen, is it possible for any man or woman to speak from a lectern like this? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is possible for any man or woman to speak from a lectern like this if one knows the fundamentals of public speaking. What did I do just now? I asked a question. Is it possible for any, not that I don't know the answer, I asked a question suddenly for you to think. Is it possible for any man or woman to speak from a public platform like this? Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Here don't give a pause. Then somebody will say, no. Here it's dangerous, don't give a pause. Here pause should never come. In a rhetorical question, don't ever consider a pause, it should come. The question is asked and quickly answered. That is a rhetorical question. Look at public speakers today. The ones who leave an impact on you, they are people who ask questions, not that they don't know the answer. They'll ask a question and they will answer it exactly as they want it. But when they ask the question, you are suddenly probed. You suddenly start thinking, what is he asking us? And then he will answer it, or she will answer it exactly as they want it. So that is rhetorical. Rhetorical questions are very powerful. Suddenly people realize it is not just statements. They are asking questions, but of course I am not expected to answer. That's a different issue. So that is one. Second comes a flourish. Flourish is a decoration for speech. Repetitive use of words that will make the speech a little more colorful. I will read something to you just to make you understand what is a flourish. The story of Manipal is the story of imagination. The story of Manipal is the story of inspiration. The story of Manipal is the story of innovation. The story of Manipal is the story of the initiative of its founder and builder, whatever. What is that? The story of. It suddenly gives that extra kick when you speak. Look at public speakers today. They will use the same sentence beginning repeatedly. Not that they don't have the vocabulary, but for effect. I'll give you another example. Promise yourself to always give the best. Promise yourself to be just as enthusiastic about the success of others as you are about your own. Promise yourself to press for greater achievements in the future. Promise yourself to live in the faith that the whole world is on your side. Promise yourself to think well of yourself and to proclaim this fact to the world. Whatever. Promise yourself. Whenever you use words, the same words over and over again, this is flourish. I'll give you another example. Despite the ills that afflict various fields of education, despite the inadequacy of the methods of functioning, despite the inability to produce the type of people society needs, despite the confusion of concepts that prevail in institutions, despite the lack of development of skills of students, despite the dissatisfaction of the employer community, despite the lack of civilized living in educational institutions, an Indian has to be proud of the fact that we have a system of education which is available to a large number of our youth. What am I saying? Despite. And then suddenly you turn around and say it is something which we can still be proud of. So what I'm trying to say is, when you use words over and over again, it has that flavor and fragrance, and people suddenly wonder, what are you going to say? So this is something which you can always use, and you will see that very effective public speakers use that. Then comes phrases and words. Phrases and words is something which you might have already observed in your speeches. Most of the time, the entire speech may be 90 minutes or more, but what is actually remembered are those key words and phrases. Again, when the Prime Minister spoke to the nation last Independence Day, he spoke for 90 minutes. But at one point he said, reform, perform, transform. These three words, reform, perform, transform, became the headline. The speech was known by that. Ultimately, people will remember those key words. Key words and phrases are remembered. When Winston Churchill, when he spoke to his country during the Second World War, he gave a long speech. At one point he said, what can I offer you, my countrymen? Blood, sweat, toil, tears. Those four words, blood, sweat, toil, tears, became the title of his speech. And that is true with most of the speeches. Look at speeches of Kennedy, look at speeches of anybody, any luminary. You will find the speech is often titled by those key words and phrases. And it's important, if you can plan to have those key words and phrases, it will definitely have an impact. People will remember that. The entire speech may be forgotten. During the last convocation here in MUJ, we had the Honorable Minister, Prakash Javadekar, and at that time, I'll just read this for you. A convocation is an apt occasion to rejoice, to remember, to reinforce, rejuvenate, reaffirm, and realize. Let us rejoice by celebrating the achievements of the graduating students. Let us remember the memorable moments you have had at MUJ. Let us reinforce our commitment to society. Let us rejuvenate the intrinsic inherent values of education. Let us reaffirm our faith in the goodness of man. Let us realize the value of harboring positive thoughts. Now, words and phrases are often remembered. They may forget the rest of the speech. So it's always important when you plan a speech, just put in a few words and phrases, which will be the catchwords and phrases which people will always remember. Sri Pranab Mukherjee, when he was the president at that time, he was very disturbed by the parliament being disrupted. And he said, let there be debate, let there be discussion, let there be dissent, let there be delay, but let there be decision. Those words, debate, discussion, dissent, delay, but decision. That is remembered. We don't remember the rest of his speech. So this is what I mean by saying phrases and words. Phrases and words, rightly chosen, will always be remembered. And that's why it's important that you pay attention to that. A little bit of thought, and that will make a difference. That speech will often be known by that, those phrases or words. The last one is what is known as the punchline. The punchline is a line that goes against the general expectation. You expect something to be said, but what is actually conveyed is totally different. I'll give you an example. Member of Parliament Shashi Tharoor is talking about India being very high on holiday index, saying India has got a large number of holidays. So he says, at these official tamashas, the 104 weekend holidays, the annual leave, casual leave, compassionate leave, sick leave, it is perfectly possible for an employee to work just 1/3 of the days in a calendar year and legitimately collect a full year's salary. He says we have so many holidays, so it is possible for you to work on. Then look at this. After all that he says, we think he's going to say reduce the number of holidays. He doesn't say that. He says something totally different. He says, but in countries like India, or at least in countries where there are poor people, we need more holidays. We need more public festivals to give people a chance to amuse themselves and get together and have fun. He simply changes it. You expect him to say you must, he says no. We need more time to be together, to be joyful, to be happy. Let us celebrate. So this is a punchline. You, after he says all this, you think he's going to say now curtail all the holidays. Never. He says no. Let us have more holidays and more fun. And I'm just telling you, this is a punchline goes against the general expectation. You expect something, but what comes is totally different. People suddenly get alert. Till then they were, this fellow is going to say something, but what is said is totally different. And that punchline usually goes against the general expectation. And if that punchline comes at the right time, people suddenly become alert. Against the grain, against the expectation, you take a stand. And that is the punchline. Punchline generally is effective in the initial part of a speech. You have been listening to several speeches. Suddenly you have to come and speak. You have to say something that goes against the grain. Then suddenly people say, hey, he's saying something different. Now let me listen. So, punchline, along with the phrases and words, flourishes and rhetorical questions, these are what that will take a public speech to a different dimension. From today, look at every public speech, whether it's on TV or it's a live public speech. Not with an idea of criticizing, it's not that, for you to learn. You will note that best speeches are those that have these ingredients. Most of these ingredients, when they are there, your speech will come to a different level altogether. It should be your effort. Whatever be the speech you prepare, try to incorporate some of these. I'll show you this in some of the examples I'm going to tell you later on. But be aware, first you must be aware what goes into any public speech. Once you are aware of that, now you will be ready to try the different types of public speeches. Anything specific that you want? Please remember the impact of a public speech. Again, I'll go back to the Mann Ki Baat, which our Prime Minister, he says, educate to empower, teach to transform, learn to live. We don't remember anything of that speech, but these three statements are remembered. That entire event is remembered because he said, educate to empower, teach to transform, learn to live. So this is something which your public speech will be remembered for the way in which you convey. And if you know what to do and how to do, you will really make an impact. That is why it's important to know the ingredients of a public speech. If we have done this, we are now going to welcome address and vote of thanks. But if there's anything specific that you want to ask with reference to what I have spoken so far, I will take a minute for you to ask me if you have any specific question. Yes.
It's not a query, it's just an observation regarding eye contact.
Yes.
When we were, being trained as debaters, we were always told, always look at people who are very receptive towards you.
Yeah.
So, that builds on to your
Yeah,
confidence.
yeah.
Don't look at people who are making faces, don't try to pull you down
Yeah.
because you'll forget.
Yeah.
So, how deliberate you think
suggest when you come and stand behind the lectern, every figure that you see is an image. You are not seeing individuals. You can't recognize anybody. The moment you start recognizing, some thought will come regarding that person. Something will come, then that will confuse you. You must view them as just images. It's all hazy. You can't recognize anybody. It's best you do that. If you can drop one haze in front of your eyes, then people are there. You look at everybody, but don't recognize them. And the problem, both ways it can happen. One way it can help you. If you like somebody and that person is inspiring you, you will look at that person, but others are going to feel offended. Why? He is only looking at one person. You're going to feel left out. That is one. Second, if that person is not somebody whom you like, you will feel a little jittery. So it's best if you can drop one curtain, one sort of artificial thing that will, you don't see people, you only see images. That is something that if you look at that one person, we have often seen public speakers who look only at one segment of the audience and speak. Then of course, any other question?
I have seen people to make impact in their public speaking, they get bilingual, they use multiple languages.
It's fine.
What is your
That's fine, that's fine. They can use it. If you are conversant with, very good. Especially if people understand, you can use Sanskrit, you can use Hindi, you can use English. It's very good. It's fine. There are no hard. Again, what I'm telling you, these are all some general guidelines, and it doesn't say that you should always speak in one language. If you are conversant with many languages, you want to convey something more effectively, it may be better if you go to switch to that language. That's fine too. Absolutely no issues.
What's the role of voice modulation and pauses during speech?
Yeah, I mentioned that to you. The role of pause I mentioned to you. Something very important has been said, follow it up with. There is a quote which says, your students do not care, I think I mentioned this, your students do not care how much you know, so long as they know how much you care. When you said something that is a little bit, a pondering is required, a thinking is required, give that silence. So pause is necessary, voice pitch modulations. We have seen speakers who just speak very monotonously. There is nothing, no life in it, simply read. That is of no use. Even when you are reading, you can give life to what you are reading. It is possible. That can be done. That's what I'm trying. You must allow some variation. It is not that sing-song movement, it is that ability to move your, depending on the context what you are reading. That's. Anything else specific that you want to ask? You can always ask me again, while I do the other sessions as well. We now take welcome address and vote of thanks. Why do I take these two together? Welcome speech comes first, vote of thanks comes later. I'll give you a handout, but before I give you the handout, the reason for taking welcome speech and vote of thanks together is that they have two common features. You may wonder what is common between the welcome speech which comes first and the vote of thanks which comes last. Yes, two common features. One is brevity, brief. Both the speeches, you should not exceed 3 minutes. 3 minutes is the maximum you can give a welcome speech or a vote of thanks. More so vote of thanks, because people are already at the end of their patience and tolerance and don't inflict a long speech. So 3 minutes, brevity, brief, both must be brief, welcome and vote of thanks. Second, listing of people, list of people to be welcomed, list of people to be thanked. The first thing that you will do if you have to give a welcome or if you have to give a vote of thanks, I don't know why it is called vote of thanks, it should be called note of thanks, because we are not voting. So for some reason it is called vote of thanks. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The vote of thanks person may have a longer list, doesn't matter. So two things, two common features, brevity and listing. Listing of the people who have to be welcomed, all the people who are going to come. That's the first thing you'll attend. I want to know who are all coming so that I will put them in order of importance. Then I will thank all the people. It will be almost the same order, because in the order of importance you will also thank them. Once you do this, you are now ready to give the welcome address and vote of thanks, and that's the next handout. This one is basically to give you the guidelines for welcome address and vote of thanks. Wonderful. If you have received this handout, you will notice what I already told you. These two public speeches share two features, brevity and listing. Brevity means 3 minutes. Listing is obvious to you. The list should be as brief as possible based on a common list of attendees. Please remember, the welcome speech sets the mood of the function. Generally, welcome speech is given by somebody senior in the organization. Don't give that responsibility to somebody very junior. It has to be done by somebody fairly senior in the organization or department or whatever. It depends on the function. Somebody senior enough who will welcome on behalf of the entire organization. Start with the objectives of the meet. Everybody knows why they have come. They have come for that function. But it's nice to say why today's function is special. Why it is unique. What makes today's event different from the other events that we have had so far? What is so special about today? If you can find out something that makes it special, it will be nice to say. This is the 4th convocation. This 4th convocation is special because of the presence of the HRD minister, whatever. What do you want? Whatever, something. So you can, everybody knows why they have come, but at least it's nice if you can say something more. Start welcoming people on the days first, then those in the front rows, and then others down the hall. Welcome the chief guest first. Naturally, he or she is the most important person. In large meetings, better to welcome groups of individuals rather than individuals. Group them. I will explain this to you later. And also, use a variety of expressions. Before I talk about variety of expressions, it's important for you to remember, when you give a welcome speech, please separate the floral welcome from the oral welcome. What do I mean by saying separate the floral welcome from the oral welcome? When you have 8 people to be given flowers or bouquets, if each time your speech, your welcome speech is interrupted to give the bouquet, your speech is interrupted 8 times, the continuity, the fluency is gone. If it's only one person, understandable. If you're giving bouquet to only one person, it's okay. You can stop, okay, can be given, you continue. One break is okay. But beyond that, your speech becomes interrupted. It's best that you give the bouquets first, then you start giving. Otherwise, what will happen, in between your speech, you will stop. The bouquet will be given. It is very terrible. You announce somebody's name and the bouquet goes to another person. Then you don't know what to do, whether to withdraw that, and now you don't know whether to call that person's name again. Confusion will arise. Because the person giving the bouquet may not know who the person is. Whoever is close by, who is familiar, they may go and give. It happens very often because we pick up students to go and give the bouquet. So please be aware of that. To separate the oral and the floral as much as possible. Unless you are very sure, because that interruption will take away the charm of the welcome speech. So once the flowers are given, then you can welcome. If it's just one person, you can manage. Use a variety of expressions. When you have people seated on the dais, for the first person you say, I extend a warm welcome to you. Second person you say, I extend a cordial welcome to you. Third person you say, I extend a hearty welcome to you. Fourth person, warm is over, cordial is over, hearty is over. Fourth person again, warm, hearty, cordial. Warm, it becomes monotonous. You don't know what to do. I am now going to give you 40 different ways in which you can welcome people. These are not bombastic words, these are not big words. These are simple words which we tend to forget. So that you can use these words one or the cordial once, but after that you can use different words. You get a variety of expressions. So the handout that you get now, on one side you will have different ways in which you can welcome. On the other side, you can see different ways in which you can give your vote of thanks. The expressions that you can use. They are simple words, nothing very difficult. You can convert this into any language, convert this into Hindi, no problem. But at least you will have a bank of expressions that you can use. These are very useful, particularly when you want to suddenly give a welcome address or vote of thanks. You are stuck for words, you don't get the right words. You have the listing, but you don't know what words to use. So you can use appropriate words for the occasion. I remember a man who was asked to give the welcome address. It was the Mahila Samaj, women's club in Manipal. And he chose two words. I extend an open-armed, embracing welcome. Now, he didn't mean anything, he didn't have any other motive, but unfortunately that choice was not quite appropriate in the context where he was the only man and all ladies were sitting, and he said open-armed, embracing welcome. Didn't sound quite appropriate. So otherwise you can use most of these interchangeably. But by and large, you can use them in any context. But these are different expressions depending on the situation. So don't be short of words. You have different expressions, different ways of doing it. And on the reverse, you see this welcome, the vote of thanks also, different ways in which you can give the vote of thanks. Vote of thanks also, we sometimes don't know how to go beyond the point. We say thank you very much, thank you very, very much, thank you from the bottom of my heart, thank you from the left corner of my heart, right corner of my heart, on my behalf, on your behalf. You are totally lost, you don't know how to thank because your gratitude is so much. I agree. It has to be sincere, it has to be from the heart. We are grateful to all those people, that's fine. But can you express it very quickly without testing the patience of people who are listening? Go back to the previous page. The previous page I gave you. Welcome, speech and vote of thanks. Please look at the bottom of the previous page. Avoid. Yeah, avoid, things to avoid. Of course, there's something before that. Vote of thanks should be briefer than the welcome speech. As I told you, it comes at the end. People are already tested. The order of thanking should be in the same sequence as in the welcome speech because you have to thank the chief guest first. Make a brief attempt to respond to plea, promise or greeting made by the chief guest. If the chief guest has promised something, the vote of thanks person must say, we really appreciate your having made this promise. We are grateful to you for this. So it is some way of reinforcing what he or she has promised. Here too you can use a variety of expressions. Some things you should avoid. Don't summarize, don't evaluate and don't praise. Because if you praise one person and you don't praise another person, that another person is going to be offended. So be careful. You must treat everybody equally. Don't say this on my behalf, on behalf of... It's understood. When you stand, vote of thanks must be given by the organizing secretary. Somebody who has organized the event, who has known what all has gone into that function. So generally it is done by somebody who has organized the event. So the organizing secretary is the right person to give the vote of thanks. And we often say last but not least, that is also so overused. This word is not necessary at all. But one common mistake we make in giving vote of thanks is we often say, thank you all for making it a grand success. We have declared, we ourselves have declared, it's a grand success. The vote of thanks given by the organizing secretary, he is declaring, thank you all for making it a grand success. Grandness is decided by you. Nobody has to think about it. It is already very grand because we don't have to say that. It is not for us to say that's grand. We will say thank you all for being here. Thank you all for participating. Thank you all for your time. Thank you all for participating. Whatever you want to say. But don't say thank you all for making it a grand success. That means you yourself have declared it's a grand success. So it's not for us to decide. It is for the people to decide whether it's grand or. So that's the only thing you should keep in mind. You can avoid saying that because it has also lost its meaning. That is welcome address and vote of thanks. Any specific question related to that? Welcome address and vote of thanks.
In case of a conference of say 3 days or 2 days, you have just mentioned that vote of thanks should not exceed more than 3 minutes.
Yes.
But organizing secretary has to express gratitude to everyone, like session chairman, few speakers, the guest of honor, chief guest. So normally what happens that in case of some kind of conference, it goes very long, maybe 7 minutes or 10 minutes vote of thanks. What you have said?
Yeah, can you split that into, see very often what we have observed is that when it comes to the valedictory and giving the vote of thanks, hardly anybody is there. Most people have disappeared. Most people have disappeared. Only the people organizing committee will be there, and very often that's what happens. Now, is it possible for you to split it? But that's why we give that token of appreciation and that vote of thanks is done. At the end, only people who are present, we need, in the sense, generally what happens is only the organizing committee members will be there. Very few people may be there who might be part of the association. But most of them would have disappeared. So a very long vote of thanks at that time is more painful because if you can split it into, if it is 3 days and you have the audience there, generally what I just give you an example how we do the vote of thanks in convocation in Manipal University in Manipal. We realized that when the vote of thanks comes at the very end, after the distribution of degrees and all that, there's nobody there. Students have collected their degrees and gone. Even the chief guest has gone because it's almost 3 hours and chief guest has gone. So many others who have been on the days have gone. When the vote of thanks is given, there is nobody. So what we do is, we give the vote of thanks before the distribution of certificates. That is before the degrees are out. It may look a little odd, but we changed it. What we did is, after the chief guest speaks, after the memento is given, and then the vote of thanks is given, the oath is administered, then the vote of thanks is given, then only the distribution of certificates begin. Because once the certificate distribution begins, awards of degree, all this is followed by commotion, people are restless, it's very difficult for you to control. So, once the vote of thanks has to be given, give it when people are there and are listening to you. Otherwise it becomes meaningless to give a vote of thanks when nobody is there to listen. So, these are some changes you may need to make depending on the situation. Again, I told you these are general guidelines, please be free to modify. When you thank, I want the person to listen to me and feel that I am truly grateful for whatever, whether you came or whatever that is, we would like them to listen. So naturally it has to be done when people are listening. When you have many guests, any function will have a chief guest, there will be a guest of honor. You have to introduce them. And introducing a chief guest or a guest of honor is always a challenge because generally they are very eminent people and they have very big biodatas and introducing a chief guest can also be done in 3 minutes if you know what to speak. And before I give you the handout on the guidelines for introducing a chief guest, I will just give you a few thoughts on what it is that you should not do when you introduce a chief guest. Many years ago, I went to the engineering college campus in Manipal, University in Manipal. It was a teachers training program, something similar to this. Young teachers, newly joined teachers were called and it was an orientation program for teachers. I was the speaker to be speaking at that time and the person who introduced me said, the next speaker is Ramnarayan. He comes to our swimming pool in the morning. He swims in the morning, he swims in the evening. If you want to meet him, you can go and meet him in the swimming pool. He's a very regular swimmer. He enjoys swimming. He comes to our MIT swimming pool and he swims. I was sitting there, I was stunned because I came up and said, see, I am a teacher. I also swim. These people thought this swimmer has come to teach them about teaching. Now, what was said was correct. There is no doubt about that. What was said was correct. The then vice principal, what he said was correct. He has seen me swimming because I used to go to him and get his certificate that one pass is required to be signed. So he knew I come regularly to the swimming pool. So he said he comes regularly to the swimming pool but that is correct. But it didn't help me because these teachers are wondering what this fellow, this swimmer, what is he doing? So, see, this is the problem. What was said was correct, but it didn't help. I'll give you another example. There was a very serious seminar on Raja Rammohan Roy. It was a very serious seminar on Raja Rammohan Roy, and the person who was introducing the speaker was a dentist. And that dentist, he was the Lions Club secretary, he was introducing the speaker. And he said, one day I was sitting in my clinic, and my secretary came and told me, there is a man sitting outside with a monkey in his hand. This monkey had a long tooth, and that tooth had to be filed so that the monkey becomes comfortable. This is the professor whom I first met in my clinic, who is now going to talk on Raja Rammohan Roy. Now, you can imagine, this professor who later met me told me, I have been made a monkey tamer, and people are in monkey business, and I have to talk on something serious. Raja Rammohan Roy, where can I start? Where do I go? How do I start? People are in a totally different mood. This is the... Now please remember, what the dentist did was correct. He said facts. He met this man in his clinic with a monkey in his hand, but telling that to a very to audience who is going to listen, you can imagine the plight of this professor who has to speak. He doesn't know where to start because he has been made a monkey tamer and monkey business, and Raja Rammohan Roy has to come from this. So this is the risk involved. So be aware. It's very important when you introduce a chief guest, you make him more comfortable, not less comfortable. We often say the person sitting here, the chief guest, is next to God. When God dies, he will become the next God. This is not the way to introduce a chief guest. We often say, in spite of his very busy schedule, he has no time to go to toilet also, but he has come here. This is not the way to introduce a chief guest. Everybody will say, in spite of his very busy schedule, he has come here. This is not the way to introduce a chief guest. When he or she is introduced, must be introduced properly, he must be made comfortable. I still remember there was one Professor Sunny Tharappan who was to be introduced. The person who was introducing him made a mistake. He massacred the name. He went and said Sunny Tharappa. So somebody quickly got up and whispered to him, it is not Pa, it is Pan. So this fellow said, Sanniyappan Tara. He changed the gender. The gender itself was changed. And you can imagine the Sunny Tharappan coming to speak, gender is changed, and he is standing there, he became Sanniyappan Tara. Now what I am saying is the least we should do when you introduce a chief guest, please get his name right. We had in our university many years ago, in Manipal, the Deputy Health Minister of Malaysia, one person by name Dato Seri Samivilu. The first thing he did as soon as he arrived in our campus, he asked, who is introducing me? I was supposed to be introducing him, so I went and met him. He said, see, my name is Dato Seri Sami Velu. I am not Velu. Everybody calls me Velu. My name is not Velu. Please pronounce my name correctly. He made me repeat 5 times. Sami Velu, Sami Velu. Then I practiced. By evening I was okay. Then I announced Dato Seri Sami Velu. They are very particular. Some of them are very particular about the way their names are pronounced. So you can't massacre names and mutilate names. That is the least we should do to a guest who has come all the way. So please do that. Keep that in mind. What are the guidelines for introducing a chief guest? Let's. If you have received that, you will notice that the first one is very common mistake that is made. When you introduce a person, do not address the person, do not salute the person being introduced. What do I mean by this? The person being introduced must not be saluted. He's sitting there, don't salute that person or don't address that person. Start with all the other people. Because you are introducing that person to the audience. You're not introducing him or her to himself. You don't have to address that person. I'll give you an actual example later. So first is, don't address the person who's being, that is, don't salute the person who's being introduced. Don't read his biodata, pick up that which is essential, don't embarrass with unrelated information. I gave you 2 examples. Don't use superlatives. Don't say he's a fantastic speaker or say he's a very humorous speaker. He may not be able to speak well or he may not be able to have humor in his speech. So be aware of that. So don't say things that might make things difficult for him. He should become more comfortable. Don't mention his name repeatedly, don't exceed 3 minutes. Now I'll give an actual speech, an introduction speech, just to show you what are the components of that speech, just to make you understand. So I'll now take you through and then explain to you the importance of introduction. This is a speech that was given during the Kasturba Medical College graduation day. This can be improved, but I'm just showing you the components of the speech. I'm not going to read the entire speech, but I'll just take you through the components of the speech. See, the first paragraph is the salutation. Please look at the salutation. President Dr. Ramdas Pai, Vice Chancellor Dr. Viliathan, Dean so and so. What I am trying to say is, it's better not to say beloved, honorable, respected, most endearing, loving. Now if you start, then it becomes very difficult for all these people. So best is to use the designation, follow it up with the name. No problem. Second thing that you observe, the list of people being addressed does not include the guest of honor. The guest of honor is G.V. Satyavati, who was the guest of honor. Her name is not there. Person being introduced is not saluted, not addressed, because you are introducing Satyavati to the audience. I am not introducing Satyavati to Satyavati. So that is what I mean by saying do not address the chief guest. I will read the second paragraph. Graduation day represents culmination of years of perseverance and academic endeavor. For some it is a pinnacle, for many it's a landmark, for most it's a milestone, a prominent milestone on the road to further accomplishments. To inspire us and to confer the degrees today, we have as our chief guest a person who is not only an administrator, not only an academician, not only a researcher, not only a pharmacologist. What is this? Not only. Flourish. Repetitive use of words, but also the first woman to head the prestigious Indian Council of Medical Research. Paragraph 3, 4, 5 and 6 relate to her achievements. I won't read that. Let's go to the last paragraph. For this solemn and ceremonial event today, there could not have been a more appropriate person than her to embellish, to enhance, to enlighten, to enrich. Choice of words means the same thing, but it gives that extra fragrance. I am absolutely delighted to present the shining star of the scientific firmament, the guest of honor, the Director General of the Indian Council of Medical Research, Dr. G.V. Satyavati. Please note her name comes only once in this entire introduction. If I were to say Satyavati, by the time the last Satyavati comes, you had enough. Don't go on repeatedly telling the name over and over. No need, everybody knows who is the chief guest, and you go on repeating that. So please, you can use it once or twice more, it's okay, but as much as possible, everybody knows who is the chief guest, so don't have to go on repeating that name over and over again.
Sometimes at the end it is said that now please give her a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate or not?
Actually, we should introduce in such a way that even as you read, that person should be walking towards you. You don't have the MC to even invite. Even as you say, I am immensely pleased. Now, to give a standing ovation at that point of time, because that person is even ready to speak, it's okay. It's a respect, it's a form of expression of your admiration. That's fine. There's no harm in that. But the important thing that you have to remember is, when you are introducing someone, especially when you are announcing that person's name, please make sure you announce into the mic. We often turn away. Please look at the previous page. Go back to the previous page you have and see the last paragraph. Look at the last paragraph. Previous page. Introduction of a guest speaker. Look at the last paragraph. Finally, remember not to turn towards the speaker when you enunciate his name. When you turn towards the speaker, you tend to turn away from the microphone and the speaker's name will not be heard by the audience. If you must turn away, please do so only after the last syllable has been uttered. After you say Dr. G. D. Satyavati, then turn. Very often we turn away. Just when that name is going to come, there is not turn. Now of course I have the other mic, the label mic. But very often when you have mics like this, that is the only thing you're doing. So please be aware, introducing a chief guest, always a person must be introduced before he or she speaks. If you have three important people, don't introduce everybody together. Then when you call somebody, people are confused. Hey, this person is who? Three introductions were made, they'll be confused. Introduce the person, invite that person. Introduce the next person, invite that person. That way people remember. Even as you introduce the person, they are ready to receive you. If you introduce everybody together, the risk is that they may get confused.
Excuse me, sir. In case of expert talk or workshop, if we are calling someone, that person not a chief guest.
Yeah, that must be a very brief introduction. Yeah, don't make it elaborate. I am talking of a guest of honor or a chief guest. Where there it will be very brief. Everybody knows about the person. The last thing is master of ceremony before we go for tea. Remember that being a master of ceremony is always a challenge. Things can sometimes go wrong in spite of your best efforts. Whether it's a man or a woman, we call the person master of ceremony. Sometimes you can have two MCs for a function. You can have two, but there are some simple guidelines which we have to remember. The first thing you have to remember is a master of ceremony is a link. Link means linking one unit of the program with another. Invocation with lighting of the lamp. Lighting of the lamp with welcome address. Welcome address with introduction of chief guest. Okay. Linking one unit of the program. So basically you are the link. If the link is not strong, the program will look disjointed. So basically the function of a master of ceremony is to function as a link. I'll give you the guidelines, but before that a few thoughts. If you are the master of ceremony, you must be there on time. You have said the function will start at 2 o'clock. Everybody should be seated by 1:45. So you have told everybody to be seated at 1:45. 2 o'clock is the function. For some reason there is delay. The function doesn't start at 2. Chief guest is delayed. It's going to happen only at 2:20. Out of respect for the people who have come on time, you as the MC, please be there at 2 o'clock. When at 2 o'clock you be there, please say good afternoon ladies and gentlemen. I am your master of ceremony for this afternoon's function. There will be a delay in the commencement. We may be able to start at 2:20 only because the chief guest is held up whatever. So that you are winning the confidence of the audience. Otherwise what will happen? 2 o'clock, nothing is happening. 2:05, nothing is happening. 2:10, nothing is happening. People become restless. We have been asked to come at 1:45. They become restless. And then when you really come around 2:20, they are no longer with you. They say they don't have any respect for time. So that's the only thing. So out of respect for the people, you come 2 o'clock, then you say, this is what is going to happen when the chief guest comes. This is will be the program. Take the audience into confidence. That is one. The second thing that you must do when you are the master of ceremony is to announce what one does during invocation. During invocation, whether they remain seated or standing, one thing, it doesn't matter whether they are seated or standing, whichever is comfortable you please do. But invocation is a very solemn and sacred beginning, auspicious beginning for any event. You can't have a situation where when the invocation is going on, somebody is standing up, somebody is sitting, somebody is wondering whether I should stand or sit. This can happen. And it happened to me actually. I was the dean of the college at that time. I was sitting there and I was looking at my student who was singing the invocation. I was sitting next to her, and there were people to my left, and the audience, I couldn't see the audience because it was all dark. Halfway through the invocation, somebody was nudging me like this and said, "You are the only one sitting." Then I looked to my left, everybody had stood up. In the darkness, when I looked in, I saw that everybody had stood up. I didn't realize I was the only one sitting. The photographer was very kind. He waited for me to stand. Otherwise, he would have taken one photo and said, "Look at this fellow sitting." That didn't happen. You were very kind. I told the photographer, doesn't matter, he would have taken one photo just to show why it is important to announce. Why I am saying this. Actually, it happened to me. It could have happened to the chief guest. It would have been very embarrassing. When you have invocation, please announce. Now we will have the invocation, so and so will give the invocation. During invocation, let us all remain seated. Or let us all remain standing. One thing. But if you don't say anything, there will be confusion. It happened. State Bank of India branch inauguration in Manipal. It happened. Some people were standing, some were sitting, some were deciding whether to sit or stand. Invocation is over, person has gone, they have forgotten, invocation is over. This is the risk involved. So don't be silent. On that aspect, you must be very clear that during invocation, you decide if you're comfortable with standing, let everybody stand. If you want people to sit, it's okay. But let them do only one thing, otherwise there will be confusion. Please remember, in spite of your best efforts, sometimes things can go wrong. In the year 2000, that's almost 18, 17 years ago, Manipal University decided to give honorary doctorates to 3 people. Dr. Abdul Kalam, Nani Palkiwala, and C. Subramaniam. C. Subramaniam was a former food minister and finance minister in the Congress government. Then Nani Palkiwala, of course, you would have heard about him. And of course, Dr. Abdul Kalam. So these 3 people were to be given honorary doctorates. 2 of them could not travel to Manipal. They couldn't come to Manipal in Karnataka because they were not in good health. That is Nani Palkiwala and C. Subramaniam. Abdul Kalam was fit. So the university convocation was held in Chennai, in Bharati Vidya Bhavan. It was a very nicely organized function. There was one lectern there, another lectern here. In the center, Abdul Kalam, Nani Palkiwala, C. Subramaniam. One side was the Chancellor, Dr. Ramdas Pai. On the other side was the then Vice Chancellor of Manipal University, Professor Hegde, B.M. Hegde. I was the master of ceremony for that function. I announced at one point, may I now invite Prasar Bharati Chairman, M.V. Kamath, to introduce C. Subramaniam. C. Subramaniam was sitting there, I was standing there. I said, now I invite Prasar Bharati Chairman, M.V. Kamath, to introduce C. Subramaniam. So M.V. Kamath came from the audience, he came to the other side. Now C. Subramaniam, old man, hard of hearing, irritable, he suddenly heard his name. He thought he had to speak. He simply grabbed the mic that was in front and he got ready to speak. M.V. Kamath was standing there, ready to introduce him. And I was standing there, whom do I say don't speak? The attender who was behind C. Subramaniam quickly rushed to me and said, please don't stop him speaking, because if you stop him, he will never speak. He might get irritated, he might walk out. Please don't stop him, let him speak. I was in a dilemma, what to do. That time I looked at the Vice Chancellor, Professor B.M. Hegde. He quickly came to my lectern and said, now Sri C. Subramaniam will speak. M.V. Kamath was given a chair, he was made to sit down, and after C. Subramaniam spoke, again, Professor B.M. Hegde came to my lectern and announced, now, Prasar Bharati Chairman will now introduce C. Subramaniam. This was the first instance where I saw somebody being introduced after the speech was given. Why I am saying, now of course I am telling it in a very light-hearted way, but please remember those were tense moments. In spite of my best efforts, things went wrong. I didn't know he is hard of hearing, I didn't know he is irritable. These things can happen. When Sri Pranab Mukherjee came to our campus to inaugurate the Center for Asian Studies, I still remember, he was there and I was sitting to his right, I was the Vice Chancellor then, and to the left was Dr. Ramdas Pai, the Chancellor of the University. And it was announced by the MC, we now request the three of them to light the lamp and inaugurate the Center for Asian Studies. So we, 3 of us stood up and came forward, no light, no lamp. Nothing. Security has removed everything. Security said fire hazard, they removed everything. We were not told. Sri Pranab Mukherjee was very gracious. He said, don't worry, assume that I have lit the lamp. He went and spoke. Everybody later pounced on the master of ceremony, saying that you didn't arrange. It was not the mistake of the master of ceremony. Everything was arranged, but the security is removed. These things can happen. Why I am saying that is, as an MC, it's not to scare you. Be aware things can go wrong in spite of all the planning and all the best efforts. Just, you have to allow to go on. Of course, everything else went well, but just be aware certain things can go beyond your control. So just accept it and you have to move on. With this, let us now take the last handout, then we'll go for tea. The last handout relates to the guidelines for being a master of ceremony. These guidelines are written a little differently for a change. These are written as 13 commandments. The first one, please don't talk too much. As an MC, don't talk too much. Generally, MC wants to talk and talk and talk and talk. MC should not talk too much. And if an MC were to say that, this is how the MC will say, thou shalt not be inebriated with the exuberance of thy own verbosity. That means, don't talk too much. It's as simple as that. So, as an MC, you should just be a link. It is not your performance. It is you who is just linking the components. You should dress appropriately, means whatever is comfortable for you, because you will be the most mobile person. You will talk to the president, you might talk to so many people on the days. So, you might talk to the chief guest. So, be comfortable so that you are moving around. Don't trip and fall, because then there are some problems if you trip and fall on the stage. And thou shalt check the program, be prepared for changes, don't get upset if program gets changed. Please keep time without being offended. Simplest thing to do is to tell people beforehand how much time they have to speak. Very important, 5. Thou shalt be seen, never announced from backstage. An MC cannot be from backstage. It cannot be a divine voice coming. Dignitaries, please occupy the days. So God is telling them, come on. MC must be visible. You must come and stand, or you have a table and sit. You must be visible to the audience. So that is what is 5 is. Thou shalt be seen, never announced from backstage. Thou shalt act as a link between units. That's a basic function of an MC. You shall keep objectives of the program in mind. You shall not summarize, comment, or distort what speakers have said. Don't elaborate the thank you. For one speaker, you say, thank you for that wonderful, inspiring, illuminating speech. For the next speaker, you say, thank you. The second speaker will say, only thank you for me. Previous one, inspiring, illuminating, wonderful speech. So be careful. People are listening. So be aware of that. Do not joke or make superfluous comments. You are not a joker. It's a compeer is a joker. Compeer is for variety entertainment. C-O-M-P-E-R-E. That is different. An MC performs a solemn function. You shall be responsive to the mood of the audience. When the audience becomes restless, you must be able to appeal to them to stay calm. Please treat all participants equally. Thou shalt not steal the show. Thou art the master of the ceremony. In no way is it the ceremony of the master. That is important. Please remember that. These are the things I wanted to share with you. Enjoy public speaking. Enjoy the opportunity you get when you want to speak in public. It's always a learning, great experience. And of all the things that go into giving you confidence, public speaking is one thing that will make you tremendously confident as a leader. Wish you well. Enjoy public speaking. Let's have tea.
सर आप जानते हैं राहुल जांगिल जी को? जांगिल जी नहीं अनाउंस कर देना।
trust as a magic in it. There is an interest quality in human consciousness in all of us to trust or to be trusted. Each one of us, every one of us, everybody enjoys being trusted. It is the most deep respect for each other. A man who trusts himself comes to know how the beauty of it, the intensity of it, and comes to know that the more you trust yourself, the more you bloom, the more you blossom, the more you flower, the more you mature, the more you grow, the more you are in a beautiful state of let go. And relaxation, the more you settle, you are more serene, you are more tranquil, you are more peaceful, you are more calm, you are more collected, you are more cool, you are so quiet, you are so silent. Trust can be so beautiful that you start trusting more and more people. Because the more you trust, the more your calmness, your tranquility, your silence deepens. Your coolness goes deeper, and to every single core of your being. You simply start flowing, you simply start flowing. Trust means flowing with the life without any expectations, any desires, any demands of your own. Not asking, not begging, not complaining, not cursing. Whatsoever happens, accepting it. And remember, this is not something that you are doing. If you are doing it, then there is deep rejection. You say, yes, I will accept. Whatever is happening, I am willing to accept. But there is an inside deep rejection. Non-acceptance behind your acceptance. You really don't accept. You are accepting only because you feel helpless. In spite of all my efforts, all my struggle, life is not happening the way you want it to happen. You feel life has cheated you, the life has fooled you. You don't understand why it's happening to you. You feel sad, you feel bad, you feel terrible. Finally, you may go mad. It does not matter whether your trust is in the right person or not. It does not matter whether your trust will be appreciated or not. It does not matter whether you will be deceived because of your trust or not. Please understand, there is every possibility that you may be deceived. The world is full of deceivers. They are just trying to deceive you. Your own people, your close people may deceive you. But what matters is that you trusted. It is out of your trust that you become integrated, which is far more important than anything else in this life. Whatever may happen, your trust will be complete, your trust will be total, your trust will be absolute. You never distrust. People are miserable because they have chosen to distrust. This is your choice which you have made. From very childhood they have been told, don't trust, because if you trust, you will be cheated. The world is full of cunning people, so remain cautious, remain careful, don't trust, Hoshiar. Hence they have become sad. They have become very lonely. Even when you are sitting with people, you feel so lonely because everybody is suspicious, everybody is scared, everybody is afraid, everybody is doubtful about each other. Even if people are sitting close to each other, they are holding themselves so back that their whole being becomes very hard, very harsh. A hard crust of mistrust surrounds all of us. Armor arises around our being. We can't feel, we can't reach, we can't touch, we can't understand, we can't meet, we can't trust. Even when we meet, there is no real meeting. People seem to hold hands, but hands are cold. Absolutely no warmth, no love is flowing. They seem to hug each other. Yes, only the bones clash with each other, but the hearts remain far distant. So much of gap, so much of distance, so much of mistrust. So close, yet so far. Most unfortunate. We have become strangers to each other, we have become strangers to ourselves. Somehow we compromise, somehow we tolerate, somehow we try to live with people. But compromise is not love, tolerance is not trust, and this is not the way to live. So it's not a question of how to trust your wife, your friend, your father, your mother, your son, your colleague or your student. But it's a question of how to trust. Please understand, mind lives in the climate of doubt. And unless you know how to put the mind off when it's not needed, and descend into your heart, you will not know how to trust. The climate of heart is always trust. Mind cannot trust. Mind is incapable of trusting. And we all have become hung up in the head. Hence, even though we say trust, we don't trust. We insist that we trust, but that very insistence shows that we don't trust. We want to trust, we pretend to trust, we want the other to believe that we trust, but actually we never trust. On this beautiful earth, love has become a myth, trust has become a myth. In fact, we really never love the other. We only love ourselves. Every single relationship we use to enhance or build my own ego. That's why we tend to associate with successful people, but not with whom we consider as failures. Even when those failures can be our own children. We think, we assume, we believe, we speak, we imagine about love, but about truth, about trust, but we never love, we never trust. In the name of trust, we exploit, we manipulate, we control, we fight, we deceive, we conquer. If required, even we kill people. We use people for my own purpose, for my own progress, for my own pleasure. When there is so much of aggression, when there is so much of ambition, when there is so much of competition to be top of everything, to be a great success, to be an authority, to lead, to have so much of power? Can trust exist? Can love exist? We see this fact very clearly, but yet we simply go on without doing anything. Competitiveness, conformity, jealousy, fearfulness, love, hate, betrayal, all that is going inside. We are either conscious of it or we deliberately avoid it, and thereby we start wearing masks. And I say to my wife, to my father, to my colleague, whoever it is, I love you. What happens when there is so much of deep contradiction in my life, in my relationship? How can that collaboration, that contradiction, have any sense of deep integrity? How in that state of hypocrisy I can create true collaboration, true cooperation? And yet that is what we do until we die, living in constant confusion, constant contradiction, and constant conflict. There is so much of disorder in my life without establishing a beautiful order which is whole, integral, and harmonious. Collaboration, passion, spirit, joy, silence has no meaning whatsoever. If that collaboration has to come, if that order has to come, if that joy has to come, if that life has to come, we have to understand and end every single disorder. So what is the nature, what is the source of this disorder? One fact you must very clearly see. I live in disorder, you live in disorder, we live in disorder. What is this disorder? Because as long as you live in the disorder, you can't rest, you can't relax, you can't enjoy, you can't celebrate. Every single problem is nothing but a disorder. So the intelligence, the purpose of education is to understand the disorder so that instantly, immediately you are able to end every single disorder. Are you following me? What is this disorder? Last session, just look, just to understand what is the nature of this disorder which is bothering me, distracting me, disturbing me, making me restless, cause of so much of misery, so much of sorrow, so much of problem, so much of confusion, so much of conflict. Order has to come. What tells you that you may be living in the disorder? The indication that I may be living in the disorder. You must make a clear diagnosis if you have a disorder. What will tell you that you may be living in the disorder? If you are confused, if you are concerned, if you are distracted, if you are disturbed, constantly bothered, constantly worrying, anxious, tense, upset, irritated, every single thing indicates that you may be having a disorder. Because if there is order, you will be tranquil, you will be peaceful, you will be calm, you will be composed. That shows that you have order. And that's the most beautiful way to live. Because when you are peaceful, when you are really peaceful, in that beautiful state, whatever you do becomes so effective. When you make a cup of tea, the way you make a cup of tea, when you go for a walk, when you play with your child, when you take a lecture, when you listen to the music, when you sleep, every single activity becomes poetic, artistic, a prayer, a meditation. But that requires order. That requires order. What is the order? Ultimately, it's very simple. The easiest task, the effort is to understand my disorder, and I must be able to end my disorder. Nobody will tell you. You must identify your disorder. And somehow you have to end the disorder. Don't waste time. Life is going. Days are going. Years are going. Anytime you can become old. Then it's all over. You will die with disorder. Pardon me. I'm not going to scare you, but this is what most essential. To end every single disorder. Because if order has to come, very important, if order has to come, what must end? Disorder must end. If day has to come, what must end? If day has to come, what must end? Night must end. If peace has to come, what must end? The war, the fight, the battle, the violence must end. If joy has to come, what must end? The sorrow, the misery, the sadness must end. If love has to come, what must end? The hate, the hurt, the violence, the aggression must end. The fact that I am violent, I ask, I beg, I pray, I struggle to bring love. It's not possible. What's important is you must end your violence. Violence is a fact. So intelligence is to understand your disorder and to end your disorder. Now this is very essential. Now what is this disorder? What is the nature of this disorder? Because as long as you live with the disorder, you have no space. You have no space. Because the space is occupied by the disorder. Are you following me? That beautiful space is occupied by a disorder and it has no space. So disorder indicates or disorder results in non-space. Disorder indicates no space. The space is full of a disorder. My violence, my aggression, my ambition, my hurt, my pain, my violence. It is full space, no space. And when there is no space, there is no learning. On the other hand, when you end disorder, order has to come. Order means you have so much of space. Beautiful space. Where you can sit, you can relax, you can enjoy, you can celebrate. And when there is space, there is a beautiful learning. But only question is you have to understand disorder and end the disorder. So the order comes. Naturally, beautifully, the order has to come. And that's intelligence. That is awareness. And the basic purpose of education is to end the disorder. To give that intelligence so that I am able to end my disorder. Are you following me? Now what is the disorder? Secondary feeling is the disorder. Secondary feeling is the disorder. And primary feeling is the order. That means I must understand what is secondary feeling, and I will end my secondary feeling so that I am able to communicate my primary feeling. So disorder is secondary feeling. I am not supposed to evaluate, I am supposed to describe. Similarly, I am not supposed to communicate my secondary feeling with disorder, I am supposed to communicate primary feeling. Are you following me? Description is basically your ability to communicate truth. A simple fact which you are seeing, and most basic function of a teacher is to make me see the truth. Somehow you must make me see the truth. That is most powerful. The moment you see the truth, order has to come. But only problem is how you make me see the truth. Like my grandmother helped me to see the truth. In her own way, remarkable way, sincere way. There are two very powerful forces in this universe which can transform all of us, which can all of us make us Buddhas. One is truth. Not easy to speak. Because truth can be harsh, truth can be hard, truth can be very bitter. But you must speak truth in such a way that I am able to see the truth. That's your capacity, that's your kindness, that's your compassion. Buddha's compassion, of course, most misunderstood man, he was trying to see the truth. But we misunderstood him. He was trying to do a great service, but we mistook his service. So what is the secondary feeling? What do you mean secondary feeling? Are you following? What is secondary feeling? The ultimate disorder. And unfortunately we live in disorder. Good people, but people living in disorder. Secondary feeling is what? What is secondary feeling and what is primary feeling? Yeah, thinking, you see. There are two things. Listen to me very carefully. Two things. Education is about two parts. One is to think, other is to see. Seeing is only possible when you are not thinking. And the moment you start thinking, seeing is not possible. Darshan, I have heard the word darshan. Darshan is about direct seeing. Vipassana is direct seeing. Buddha speaks so simple. He says it's only one thing is required. You are able to see, but that seeing is only possible when you don't think. But both things are important. My student must be able to see, he must also be able to think. But when he is thinking, he must be thinking, he cannot see. But when he is able to see, he should not think. He must be able to see. This is the problem. Thinking is easy, but seeing is almost impossible. Almost. And that seeing is only possible when you are describing. Observation, thinking is not possible when you see. Are you following me? We'll speak about that. But what is secondary disorder? What is primary disorder? What do you mean secondary? What do you mean primary? What is the primary? Is it primary or secondary? Primary. And what's secondary?
The later part.
We are supposed to communicate the primary feelings, but not the secondary feelings. I'll do a small exercise. Again, a very interesting exercise called as fantasy exercise. What is fantasy exercise? A very powerful tool in learning tool. What is fantasy? Fantasy means what? Yeah. You start imagining. Very vividly you start imagining. Now fantasy exercise, what happens is I will be speaking. I will be speaking. What you will be doing is you will be closing your eyes, sit back, you rest, you relax. But based on my words, you must create appropriate images in your mind. Are you following? Based on my words, you have to create appropriate images in your mind. For example, I may be saying, Anil Kumble is coming and bowling. You must imagine Anil Kumble coming and bowling. Are you following? Now this is what is called as fantasy exercise. And the exercise what I am going to do is called as auto ride. What ride? Auto ride. I am sure all of you have traveled in an auto rickshaw. Am I correct? You have traveled to a remarkable experience, a wonderful experience, a joyful experience. Auto ride. Before I do the actual exercise, let me give you the background about this auto ride. Gauroji, mera dost hai idhar. I am so happy to give you an example. Can I give an example? अच्छा बंदा है, नेक बंदा है, good बंदा है, beautiful बंदा है. A simple ordinary human being, not a teacher, manual laborer. But such a good fellow. He may not have much money, but big heart. He has one young brother, and he loves that brother so much. Only for the sake of brother he is living, he is working, he is earning. Every single day he has to get up in the morning, he has to work very hard. Whatever he is earn for his brother. And he loves that brother so much. He has a small house here, very close nearby. Every single day he gets up in the morning, takes care of his brother, feeds his brother, and before he goes to work, he has to say goodbye to the brother. And for him every single day. And when he returns back in the evening after the whole days of hard work, every single day his brother is waiting for his brother to come back. Young brother is waiting eagerly in front of the gate. मेरा भाई कब आएगा? मेरा भाई कब आएगा? मेरे लिए क्या लाएगा? You see, remarkable brothers. One day it so happens, after saying goodbye to his brother, he goes to work. He goes to work. Evening is returning, eagerly looking forward to meet the brother. But that day, brother is not seen. Brother is not waiting in front of the, very unusual. पूरा घबरा जाता है. My God, what happened? How come? Where is my brother? He rushes inside the home, searching for his brother. कोई कहीं भी पता नहीं दिख रहा है. मेरा भाई किधर गया? मेरा भाई किधर गया? मेरा भाई किधर गया? Nowhere to be seen. Suddenly he sees one corner of the room. His young brother is sleeping on the floor, and the way he is sleeping, that posture, the way he is lying down, looks very pathological. He rushes, touches his body. Body is burning with high fever. आँख नहीं खुल रहा है, बात नहीं कर रहा है. Seems to be very sick. Seems to be very sick. Even at 7 o'clock in the evening, current has gone. It is raining. He got very upset, very tense, very anxious. अब क्या करेंगे? अब कैसे करें? अब कैसे निभाएं? मैं क्या करूं? But suddenly, fortunately, remembers about 3 kilometers from his house there is a big hospital, nice hospital, good doctors, good facilities. The first thought comes to his mind is to transfer his young sick brother to the hospital. Poor man, he has no transport. He rushes outside searching for a auto rickshaw. Fortunately, one auto rickshaw was standing there just in front of his house. He calls him, "Bhai sahab, आइए, जल्दी आइए." And black fellow. The moment he comes close to you, fully tight. He asks him, "Are you okay? Are you all right, man? कुछ ज़्यादा हो गया? किधर जाना है ये? तो can you drive, man?" क्या साहब क्या बोल रहे हैं, क्या पूछ रहे हैं? 30 साल से चल रहा हूँ, किधर जाना है बोलिए? Can you drive, man? बोलो, आइए, किधर जाना है आपको? क्या प्रॉब्लम है? मेरा भाई बहुत बीमार है. हाँ, आइए, अभी आइए. Are you okay, man? I'm okay, lah. Are you got the picture? You got the picture? His anxiety, his tension, his frustration, he has to carry his transport, his young brother who is very sick in a very difficult evening in a auto whose driver is totally drunk. Now please sit back. You must become him. You must imagine all the tension, all the anxiety, all the tension, all the problems, all the difficulty. I will be speaking. I will be thinking about his travel from his home to the hospital in the auto whose driver is drunk. You got the picture? आराम से बैठ जाइए, आंखें बंद कीजिए. And what you are supposed to do?
What happened to taxi?
I am speaking. I am doing running commentary, and you have to appropriately create as if you are sitting in the auto. Okay? Your brother is on your lap.
Imagine.
Imagining things. Okay. Don't open your eyes. once in a while you may feel like looking at this monkey. You have seen enough of this monkey. आराम से बैठ जाइए. Are you following me? बैठ जाइए. When I ask, when I request you to open your eyes, then only you open your eyes. Okay. ठीक है? आराम से बैठ जाइए. But you must become Gaurav. Okay. God, ये क्या हो गया? मेरा भाई, अरे यार, भाई भूत नहीं होना चाहिए. मेरा प्यारा भाई, मेरा अकेला भाई. अब क्या करें, अब कैसे करें, अब क्या नहीं भाई. ड्राइवर साहब जरा ऐसा चलिए, धीरे चलिए, आराम से चलिए. मेरे भाई को और मेरे को हॉस्पिटल ले जाइए. शुरू कीजिए, जल्दी जाइए, आराम से जाइए. और the way is driving यार भाई जितना तेज पैदल चलाओ यार. Don't go that fast man. Please go आहिस्ता, धीरे से चलो यार, धीरे से चलो यार. बहुत ट्रैफिक है यार, धीरे से चलो यार. आगे चलो, देखो यार, उधर देखो यार. Please slowly you go man. Don't go that fast. Oh, this fellow is not able to listen. He is understand. ये full tight है बंदा, ये तो गया काम से. Oh my God, is increasing the speed. Is going like a rocket. Is going like a bullet. अरे यार अब क्या करें, अब कैसे करें, इसको कैसे बताएं. ये बिल्कुल नहीं सुनता मेरे. अब वो यार वो तो स्पीड इंक्रीज कर रहा है. अरे भाई साहब, मेरे भाई तेज मत चलाओ यार. तू कुछ करेगा यार, तू एक्सीडेंट करेगा यार, मेरे को मरवा देगा यार, मेरा भाई मर जाएगा यार. कुछ करो यार. अरे स्लो करो यार. मैं पाँव पड़ता हूँ, मैं आपका पाँव पड़ता हूँ. जरा धीरे करो, धीरे चलाओ, होशियार से चलाओ. This fellow is not able to understand. He is increasing. Oh my God, the way is driving. अयो आज गए, आज बिल्कुल काम से गए, आज गए, आज पूरा मर गए. अरे यार क्या करें, अब कैसे करें, कैसे बाहर आए, क्या करें, कैसे करें, अब क्या करूं. अरे बात है भाई साहब, मेरी बात सुनो भाई. अरे प्लीज मेरी बात सुनो. प्लीज स्लो डाउन, आहिस्ता चलो, धीरे से चलो प्लीज. That fellow is not able to understand. He is increasing the speed. Oh my God, अब क्या करें. Suddenly you see one big huge lorry is coming from the wrong side. It's coming from the front, and this fellow not seen the lorry. Lorry is coming. अरे भाई लॉरी आ रही है, बड़ी लॉरी आई है. कम करो, स्टॉप करो, ब्रेक लगाओ. लॉरी आ रही है, लॉरी आ रही है. अरे भाई आंखें ओपन करो, देख लो भाई, लॉरी आ रही है. This fellow not seen the lorry. Is increasing the speed. Oh my God, गए, आज बिल्कुल गए, सब मर गए. This fellow hit the lorry. It's all over. I'm going to die. My brother is going to die. अब क्या करें, अब कैसे करें. लॉरी आ रही है, बड़ी लॉरी आ रही है. 10 yards, 9 yards, 8 yards. Oh my God, अब क्या करें, अब कैसे करें. 6 yards, 5 yards. अब क्या करें. मैं ये देख नहीं पा रहा हूँ. I can't see this. I can't tolerate this. अब क्या करें. 3 yards, 2 yards. Oh my God, गए, सब बर्बाद हो गए. Oh my God, अब क्या करें. You are very sure this fellow is going to hit the lorry and everything is over. You are finished. You died on the streets of Jaipur. You and your young brother, both of you died. But God is really great. God is really great. God is really great. You never thought of this. Finally, this fellow was able to put the brake. Lorry भी रुक गई, रिक्शा भी रुक गई. Nothing has happened. अब accident नहीं हुआ. बाल बच गए. अरे आप ये क्या हुआ. You are safe. Your brother is safe. Everything is safe. अब ये साला ये हमें मरवा देता था. The way he was driving. अब ये कहाँ से आया. ये नालायक, ये useless fellow, ये stupid fellow, ये dumb fellow. Gently open your eyes. Very difficult ride. Very difficult ride. And the way you were driving, you were asking, you were pleading, you were begging. But that fellow won't listen. You thought he's very sure that this fellow is going to hit the lorry and everything is over. But God is really great. God is really great. Finally, in the last moment, when you thought everything is over, somehow the fellow was able to put the brake and you were able to avoid the accident. And you look at yourself, you are safe. But the way you do, the rickshaw खड़ी हो गई है, people have gathered, everybody's there, and you slowly come out of the rickshaw, carrying your brother, and look at the driver, he's standing there. मरवा देता ना. But see, what to communicate, what to say to the driver? अब क्या बोलेंगे जी? Useless fellow. क्या बोलेंगे क्या करें? हाँ? थैंक यू बोलेंगे. ये कहाँ से आ गए. ये बुद्धा जी कहाँ से आ गए.
Finally, we have decided
No, what do we say? What do we communicate?
Full of anger.
You're full of anger. You go and kill him. He deserves to be killed. Am I right? Almost impossible. But what was your primary feeling? When you very clearly saw nothing happened to you, you are safe, your brother is safe, what is the basic primary feeling? बच गए. A sense of relief. Thank God. कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. What is the secondary feeling? So bad. Secondary feeling is invariably anger. What that we usually communicate? You usually communicate. Am I right? And you are right to be communicate anger, but it's almost impossible. At that point of time, if you had the awareness to communicate your primary feeling, अरे यार, क्यों ऐसा करता है? क्यों इतना पीता है? मैंने पूछा, क्यों ऐसा टलाता है? मरवा देता ना, मैं मर जाता ना, मेरा भाई मर जाता ना, तू मर जाता ना, तेरे को बीवी नहीं है, तेरे को बच्चे नहीं है, क्यों ऐसा करता है? क्यों ऐसा करता है? क्या? What's wrong with you? That's your primary feeling. You have to almost impossible if you are able to communicate the primary feeling at that point of time. That will have tremendous impact on the primary. He may say something, but when you communicate anger, you always get back. If you are able to communicate your concern, your care, because you are good, if you are able to communicate goodness, अरे यार, क्यों ऐसा करता है? तू मर जाता ना, तू मर जाता ना, क्यों ऐसा करता है? That will have tremendous impact. He may say something, but he may say, अरे भाई साहब माफ करिए भाई साहब, पता नहीं लगा था आज यार कुछ ज़्यादा हो गया यार. तो मैं सोचता था कि आपका भाई बहुत बीमार है. I thought I will take his brother to little faster. I do understand. Now this is most essential. Good people, but when you communicate anger, very difficult, extremely good people, but how you handle, how you manage, what to do with your anger. A gussa, especially. It's not. I mean, we don't get angry once in a while. We get angry with your auto driver, but with whom you communicate anger? To whom you communicate your anger? The people are very close to you every single day. That anger has to be communicated. Anything is okay, man, but I can't understand. I can't tolerate. I can't live with your anger. Especially a person who is very close to me when he is angry. My father, my mother, my spouse, my child. You see, the moment you enter a home, you very clearly see your father is angry, and that anger hits you. भूल हो गई, मानता हूँ भूल हो गई. अब क्या करें, अब कैसे निभाएं, अब कैसे मनाएं? The most difficult thing to live in this world is to live with a person who is, you feel so helpless. Are you following me? Anything is okay, but that anger is not okay. Especially when it comes with the person whom you love so much. That person, when he becomes angry, when you become angry, the way you look at me, I feel that I must disappear, I must die, I must dissolve. Are you following? Have you not experienced that it is ultimate task, ultimate dissolve is that anger? I'm not saying that you have no right to be angry. You are right to be angry, but very easily you can justify your anger, and we justify my anger, am I right? But please, what I do with this anger? I don't have experience at all. You have suffered so much because of that anger. Later you may repent. अरे यार नहीं बोलना था यार, क्यों बोला यार, नहीं करना था यार, क्यों किया यार? One anger is enough. One anger is enough to destroy all the warmth, all the joy, all the intimacy, all the passion. Somehow you try to recover. Somehow you try to compromise. Somehow you try to balance. Somehow you try to become sane. You become insane. In that anger you become insane. And that anger will make you act. And once you act, it's all over. You are stuck. Are you following? What is anger? What is anger? Is it possible to live in this world without a single anger? I'm not asking you some impossible question, because you may think that I always ask impossible questions. I'm asking you, this should be the last episode of anger. If you have some common sense, if you have some intelligence, you must be able to live in this world. Nobody must be able to make you angry. That is a challenge. You see the power of that challenge? Nobody, not a single person. You are just waiting to become angry. You think the other person will make you angry. No, you want to become angry. And just waiting for some excuse to become angry. You're just waiting for some excuse. Nobody, not a single person, not a single situation, not a single incident should ever make you angry. Have you understood me? What a beautiful way to live if you are able to live in this world without ever becoming angry. Especially when mothers become angry. Oh my God. Anything is okay, man, but not mothers becoming angry. And mothers do become angry. This is a story of a mother. You see, you know mothers, how they are made. Once they give birth to a child, their life is over. Am I right? They live on the sake for the child, and the way they wait, their whole life is nothing but waiting. Waiting for the child to go to school, when the child is going back from school. Whole life is simply waiting for the child. Every single moment they only think about the child. Their life has no other meaning. And this mother, she has a young son of 6-year-old, and the son has gone to school, and this mother is waiting when the son will come back from school. Every single day they wait. And the son is coming back from school, and what the first thing mothers do, when the child comes out from school, what the first thing they do? Mothers, you see mothers, oh my God, what the first thing they do? Huh? Hug, kiss, then bread, fruit, jam, milk. Then what next? They wait for only one thing. Whenever a child comes back from school, they wait only for one thing. What they wait? They ask one question, it's very important. खाना खा लिया क्या? उसके बाद क्या? School में क्या हुआ? And more importantly, आज क्या homework है? Right? Homework is very important. School must give the homework, and who must do the homework? Mother must do the homework. Without homework, their life is incomplete. Their life has no meaning, and they must do the homework. So this mother asks, son is very smart. He says, mother asks, बेटा आज क्या homework? बेटा बोलता है आज IPL cricket album. Mother is so happy again. Fruit, jam, milk. Both mother and son go to supermarket. Mother buys a nice book. 300 doesn't matter. मेरा राजा बेटा है ले लो यार. Nice book. Both mother and son come back to home. He put the maths, sports stars, sports weekly, rest weekly, sports news. So take the scissors. Virendra Sehwag cut. Beautiful cutting, so neat, so artistic, so poetic. Sakina Tendulkar. So neat, so artistic, so fantastic, so wonderful, so because it's her son, am I right? Virat Kohli. Mahendra Singh Dhoni. By the time 8 o'clock in the night, fellow is crying. Mama, album Jani. Tomorrow morning, I'm not dead yet. No? Again, red fit, fellow goes to sleep. Then Hardik Pandya. 9 o'clock, husband is coming back from office, but who is bothered with husbands? Then she has to paste it. Beautiful painting. What a nice work. What a beautiful work. What a ecstatic work. So neat. So artistic. Then take the sketch pen and write. Virendra Sehwag. Beautiful. Moti jaise handwriting. Sakina Tendulkar. Virat Kohli. By the time the album over, 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning. But the album has come out so well, so beautiful, so artistic, so fantastic. She herself sees for 10 times. She herself sees. What album. Finally goes to sleep 3 o'clock in the morning. Even when sleeping, only Virat Kohli is coming in the dream. What time she has to get up in the morning? She has to get up and so much work. She has to prepare breakfast, give birth to son, give birth to husband, so many things. And the fellow is asking, Mama, album. Oh, album, you know, hey, best album to Mama, Adi, Mama, Chanda, Mama, hey, don't forget it, take care of it, don't spoil it. Best album, oh, so much of fun, so much of joy. Mother feels so good. Everything is over. Finally, son goes to school, husband goes to office. This lady from the kitchen comes to the drawing room. On the tip is lying album. Fellow has forgotten to take the evening. Fellow is coming from school because a nice beating the school for not bringing the album. He knows what's waiting in the home. Who is waiting? By 3 o'clock afternoon, she is ready. Kali, Durga, Rakteshwari, Chandi, Chamundi. The moment the fellow enters the gate, a big explosion. Fellow is finished, and the last ultimate nail in the coffin, ultimate dialogue, like father, like son. what is the basic primary feeling? It's okay, it's fine, I understand. But what is the primary feeling when she comes and sees the album lying there, what is the primary feeling?
सारी मेहनत बेकार हो गई
Huh?
सारी
When she
मेहनत
sees the
बेकार
fellow forgot to take the album, that beautiful album, what is the basic primary feeling?
Pain,
Pain, sorrow, sadness, difficulty, frustration, anguish, anxiety, restlessness. Oh my God, ये बंदा ऐसा क्यों करता है? Oh my God, very difficult, very complex emotions. This whole day she will be restless. She knows this fellow is going to be in the class. But what secondary feeling? Secondary feeling is
Anger.
100 बार बोला, 1000 बार बोला. इतना wonderful album, see, best album. And when he comes back from school, what is that you communicate? You communicate the secondary feeling, yes, invariably. I'm not blaming you. But if I have that understanding, that awareness, that intelligence, communicate the primary feeling, बेटा ऐसा क्यों करता है? टीचर ने मारा क्या? क्यों भूल गया? सारे दिन तेरे बारे में सोच रहे हैं. बैठ भी नहीं सकती, लेट भी नहीं सकती, खाना भी नहीं खाया. Am I right? She was so restless. क्यों करता है? तेरे को बहुत दुख लगा. इतना अच्छा album. That's your primary feeling. Good people, but when you communicate your secondary feeling, I only see your anger. That's the problem. That's the problem.
So, but how long you are going to communicate only the primary feeling? There has to be some point of time when he or she has to realize that this should not be done this way.
How to do that?
How many times would we be able to communicate primary? There will be a saturation point.
Do you think so?
So it happens at times with the younger
It
children.
never happened with parents. Parents have got so much of compassion. Parents can never give up. And teachers also should not give up. I understand your concern. I understand. At some point of time you burst. We are common people. There is a limit for my patience. There is a limit for my tolerance. There is a limit for my work. There is a limit for my frustration. One time I won't explode, but understand the consequences. Understand the consequences. We do. I'm not saying that we will live with anger, we communicate anger, we fight with anger, we destroy each other. It's a wonder that we are still able to communicate. I follow you. But anger is very difficult. Because I have plotted, because I very clearly see your father, you are very powerful, you are my father, you are my mother. What I can do? I feel so helpless. You can't do anything. But that anger creates the distance. Slowly, the warmth disappears, the affection disappears, the intimacy disappears. Many of us, I'm not blaming, you had excellent parents, but do you have that warmth? Of course, once in a year you may go and touch their feet, but that warmth has disappeared. Because their intention was very good, I understand. Your intent, you are good because you want them to learn, am I right? Not to make this kind of stupid mistakes, am I right? But that's not the way. When you communicate anger, I understand. The intention is very good, but the intention has to be communicated. Not easy, I understand. But when you communicate anger, what else you can do? Your question is very correct. What else I can do? Because I want to bring my son to understand the values. He must do well, he must live well, he must write well, he must study well. Competitive world, difficult world. And you use everything, whatever is possible you try to use, am I right? But in that process you fail. Are you following me? What to do with this anger? Of course, you have every right to communicate that anger, it's not the issue. But whatever, the basic problem is what should be my right action, that is no problem. In this situation, with this person, in this incident, what should be right action? Without harming anybody, without hurting anybody, what should be right action?
Forgiveness.
No, that you can do, anything you can. What Buddha says, in awareness, whatever you do is the right action. When you are not aware, whatever you do is the wrong action. I follow. So, the question is not action, question is about awareness, about intelligence, which we'll explore tomorrow. Am I clear? Few things you must very clearly understand. One is anger. What is nature of anger? What is nature of anger? एक गुस्सा क्या है? इसका नेचर क्या है? ये कहाँ से आता है? ये कैसे आता है? If you this you must explore. If you never do, you simply get angry, and that anger makes you act. That means if you have some intelligence, you must explore why this anger is coming. ये कहाँ से आता है? From where it originates? You must go to the root and remove the root. I'm not joking, you can live in this world without ever getting angry. It's possible. Not hurting, not destroying your children. taking wonderful care about them, making them excellent people. It's only possible without using anger. That's possible. Two things you must understand. This disorder, anger is a disorder. Am I right? Fear. Second is fear. I told you the morning. Fear. All kinds of fear. Anger is basically because of fear. Am I right? It's an expression of fear. You are scared inside because this son, if you're doing this kind of thing tomorrow, he may do terrible things. You want to prevent it. That basically indicates your fear. Third is hurt. Deeply hurt people. And when you communicate anger, I get hurt. Right? You also get hurt. Suspicion, doubt, guilt, sin, tension, anxiety, worry, every single thing is a disorder. That means you must have understanding, intelligence to understand the disorder, and you must be able to end this disorder immediately, instantly, completely, totally. Right now, don't delay. That's intelligence. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. But do I make some sense of what I speak? We'll explore this. We have just made a beginning, but tomorrow we'll try to explore what is the nature of every single disorder which is bothering me. Nobody is going to help you. Please. You must look. You must understand. You must see. You must see the nature of anger. You must see the nature of every single disorder. Then maybe you can do something ending your disorder. The moment you end your disorder, something remarkably beautiful happens. Then only you can sing, you can dance, you can celebrate, you can enjoy. Thank you so much, thank you so much, thank you so much. I'll stop here. Thank you so much for your remarkable participation, your understanding, your communication, your affection, your patience, your tolerance. You have so much of patience. 2 days. Oh my God, you have so much of patience. Hats off to you. The way you are sitting, the way you are interacting. Heart is full. Heart is totally full. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll meet tomorrow morning.
सबका बना रहा हूँ एक बार तो सबकी फोटो तो आनी चाहिए
फोटो
तो थोड़ा दूर से सर थोड़ा दूर से आइए ना फोटो आपकी भी है हाँ सर पता तो चले कौन कौन आ रहा है हाँ भाई सर का लैपटॉप तो नीचे ही है